Good morning, good morning, good morning, or good afternoon, depending on where you're joining us from. Welcome back to Fix It Finance. We are in for a good one today. It's been a long time. Let me go live on Instagram real quick, and then we will get into it. Um, so today we are talking about how to buy a house in Canada. So if you're new here, my name is Fikayo. This is Fix It Finance. We we have a good one for you today. It's been a while. It's been a couple of weeks. August ended up being way busier than I expected. With weddings. Congratulations, Leia and Joanne. Speaking engagements and just life. As you can see, I'm wearing glasses now. Yes, that happened in August as well because the devil decided to come for my eyes, but he did not succeed. If you are of African descent, please and please and please get your eyes checked and get them checked often, okay? Don't skimp on it. Ophthalmology is covered under our, health. Well, at least in Alberta it is. So, not necessarily glasses and co. That's not covered, but get your eyes checked. Just take it from me. Get your eyes checked. It's just not worth it. Because now officially I wear glasses, even though I've been in denial for a few years, but alas, the denial can no longer deny itself. Okay. Like I mentioned, my name is Sakayo. I go live on Saturdays at 12 p.m. Eastern. Thank you all for coming back. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you to my day ones. Thank you to everybody that's new here. Um, so here on this channel, control like, share, and subscribe to this channel. I am going to start dropping videos and shorts and all these other things. Well, see, guys, we're taking it one day at a time, doing what we can with what we've got. Okay, so let us get into the material just so we don't waste too much time because I have quite a bit to cover in the time that we have. So, as mentioned, my goal here at Fix It Finance is to help individuals and families take back control of their finances. So, if you are struggling, if you have you just don't know where how the money is behaving, please join this channel. If you have questions, part of why I go live on Saturdays is to take questions. So make sure you ask questions as much as you want and as much as you can. Um, I'm just gonna move my screen here so I can see as questions pop up. Okay, excuse me. Let us get right into today's episode. So as promised, I the last live that we went on, I had mentioned we're going to talk about real estate this season. So if you're preparing to buy your first home, or you're looking to buy your next property, this is for you. Okay, make sure you learn something, and whatever you learn, make sure you share the knowledge. Okay, so let us get into it. The very first thing you want to do if you're thinking of buying a house or you want to buy a house, make sure that you know your budget and your household expenses. This is fixed finance. We're not going to live in denial. We've left. It's not demure. Sorry, I said I was not going to use this thing. To not know your budget, okay? You should know your budget and your expenses. Please know everything and know them well, okay? You must know the state of your flock, okay? Um, um, Oh, I see a comment here. It says the money is doing the more I look, the less I see. That is awesome. That is wow. Holy Saji Aji, you just made my day. That made me laugh from the inside. On Instagram, he says, the money is doing the more I look, the less I see. It is well in Jesus' name. We pray that over those particular finances, you will start to see more in Jesus' name. Oh, that is so funny. I didn't get that quickly. Okay. So the very first thing you want to do if you're thinking of buying a house is to know your budget and your expenses. So, things like how do you know you can afford the payments? Okay. The lender will ask some basic questions about your household expenses. And it's just not a good look if you don't know how much you're making or how much you're spending on XYZ or what's left over at the end of the month. If they ask you what's your heating, for example, you don't know, so make sure you know your expenses, you know your household, the state of your flock, basically. Okay, it's just not a good look if you don't know. It helps to know how much of a monthly payment you can afford. So when you know your budget, you know your expenses. If you're going to get a house, for example, you make 6,000 a month, your monthly expenses, not including rent, 'cause rent will replace mortgage will replace rent, right? let's say your monthly expenses excluding housing is $2,500. Okay. So you know you have what, $3,500 left each month to be able to play with for your mortgage and your housing expenses. Okay. So you need to know that number. If not, you're gonna end up buying a house where the payment is 4,000 plus, you understand? And before you're completely house poor, or you don't know, you understand, you're not able to make ends meet anymore. You don't want to do that. You definitely want to know your your household expenses because it will help you know how much of the monthly payment you can afford. Okay. The rule of thumb out there is usually 35% or less. So you want to make sure your housing is 35% or less of your total take home pay. I personally push for 25%. And I know you might say, oh, in this housing climate and blah, 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 it's just not realistic and all that. I personally feel, and I've said this on this channel before, check your programming. Okay. You don't have to have a massive $3,000 square foot house if you can't afford it yet. Keyword yet. Okay. If you can a 5 bedroom house that's 1,600 square feet, and that's what you and your family can afford for now, do that. Okay. And when the time comes, if you can do bigger, do that. Don't put yourself under unnecessary pressure. Because if you have only 25% of your take home pay going towards housing and cool, you have 75% left to do a whole life. Okay. And we'll get into that as we go to for the next point. Okay. Because it leaves using that rule of thumb leaves enough room for investing for the future because there's still a lot of life outside mortgage. You have to plan for retirement, your children's education if you plan on paying for it for them. You might decide you want to start a business later in life. You're going to need capital to start that business. Okay. Life experiences, things like travel, things like exploring the area around you or other parts of the world you want to explore. You can't do that if you make $6,000 a month and your mortgage is 5,005. You understand? You just can't. Okay. So that's one of the reasons why there's that rule of thumb to make sure that you're not using too much of your people pay to go towards housing. You need to leave room for things like life. For example, I mentioned I'm currently on maternity leave. I was talking to one of my uncles this morning. He said, "Oh, so they give you guys a fraction of your paycheck." I said, "A fraction of a fraction." That's how much you get paid when you're on maternity leave. You're going to feel it if you go on maternity leave and your housing is extremely high. Okay. But if your housing is manageable, it helps in that period. For example, there are other things like job loss. You or your spouse loses their job, change careers. Let's say you're done with the oil and gas or the tech sector, you want to move into the public sector or into finance or whatever. It takes time, it takes sacrifice. Okay. So if you are stuck in the sense of having a high payment, you're not going to be able to make that move. Okay. Because of course, you just don't have the free funds to be able to do that. Okay. You want to know your budget and your expenses. Buying a small, like I mentioned, buying a smaller house you can comfortably afford is an option. Don't feel the pressure or follow the Joneses. You understand? To go and buy a 5 bedroom house that's 3,000 square feet that you can barely afford to keep. Okay, because there are other things that are gonna have to happen in that house. We will talk about later. Replacing the roof, replacing this carpet, your HVAC servicing, all these other things. If your budget is tied up, it's just not it's not helpful. Okay, just don't do it. Okay. As much as possible, use online mortgage calculators to assess, different scenarios. If you buy X amount of house at X amount of interest rate, one of the mortgage calculators I really like is the PMO mortgage calculator because it puts everything for you on one page. If you're renewing, if you're refinancing, if you're buying your next property, buying your first property. So make sure you do some calculations that way. Like, okay, if we buy a $500,000 house, how much is the payment going to be at X amount of interest rates? Okay, plug that into your monthly budget. What is that going to look like for your household? That's how you plan ahead. The next thing you want to do is to know your get to know your local real estate market. So how do you do that? What does that mean? You want to check listings online. For example, in my current city and even in surrounding cities, I look at the real estate market at least once a week, just so I know what the temperature is like, what things are doing. You understand? You understand? I go for open houses as possible. I go and check out show homes. Open houses are for homes that are not new homes, right? So, for example, someone for their house, for example, open houses today and tomorrow. It depends on the time. I might go check 1 or 2 hours. Not necessarily because of the market. I would like to know the local real estate market and what is doing. One of the key reasons why I recommend people do this is because by the time you've looked at this long, what happens is when you do start shopping for yourself, you will know instinctively to a large extent. When I say instinctive, because you've seen so many options out there, walk into a house and you see, ah, they're listed this house for 600,000, another house which that was listed for 580 or 540 something that is very similar to this one. So why is this one more expensive? You understand? So it gets you asking the right questions. Okay. So go for open houses, visit show homes. So for brand new homes, older homes, whatever, check listings online and just get to know the temperature. What's your city doing? What's your city doing? Because five people can list five different houses for 500,000 and each house is completely different. Okay. So you definitely want to understand what your market is doing. Um, like I mentioned, it helps you understand the local market, understand home values, pricing. You understand, for example, might buy a house, say, for example, the backyard is massive and that's the one that they're selling, but that's not important to you. You understand? So little things like that, you get to know the area you're in, what you like in houses and what you don't like. For example, in the process of shopping, for example, you might say, okay, I like it when the kitchen is in the front, not at the back. Or I like it when there's this and when there's that, or when there's this, when there's not that. So you want to get that vision, that image in front of you, okay? So you can understand what it is you're getting into. The other thing it helps you to do is to identify what amenities are important to you. For example, if you're a young family, you definitely want to live close to daycares, day homes, and schools and whatnot. If you're more older, your children are older, you definitely want to be close to, maybe family leisure centers and whatnot, YMCAs of this world, so that your children can go play basketball, swimming. You determine what's important to you and, go from there. Okay. And it helps you dream a little. For example, let's say you're not quite there yet. For example, let's say you're still paying off consumer debt. You're looking not now, maybe in the next 3 years you want to buy. It helps you dream a little bit. Oh, okay, this is what I could potentially afford if I need to save this amount of down payment, get my income up to this level, and be able to do X, Y, Z. Okay, so that's the next thing you want to do. First one, know your budget and household expenses. Second is get to know your real estate market. I see a comment here. Welcome to the glasses wearer. Thank you. My sister, if you know what God has done for me this past week, I've been in denial for a long time about wearing glasses. Finally, I was made to face music. Okay, that's why I encourage you here at Face Finance. Don't be in denial about your finance. Face the music early before someone forces you to face the music or life forces you to face the music. Okay. Um, Next thing is to gather your down payment, and I use the word gather instead of save because some people save their down payment and some people gather and save their down payment. Gather in the sense of, sometimes you might have friends or family that are helping you with down payments. Okay, so you don't necessarily. It's not well, depending on your plan. However, that looks like it means gather, like pull it all together, bring it all together. Usually, your down payment is 5 to 20% of your of the purchase price. Okay, um, as much as possible, we did a deep dive. I think it was in June. When it comes to mortgages and credit worthiness and whatnot, I think that video is very complimentary to this one. So if you didn't watch that video, make sure you check it out so you can understand what it is you need to prepare for before you get into a mortgage. When you're gathering your down payment, as much as possible, use your tax advantaged account. I think it was also June. We did a deep dive into I took each tax advantaged account as an episode. So we have one where we talked about FHSAs, we have one we talked about RRSPs, we talked about TFSAs. So you definitely want to take advantage of your tax advantaged account when you're gathering your down payment or saving for your down payment. Don't shy away from FHSAs, your RRSP home buyers plan, you understand, using your TFSA for your down payment, depending on, say it's not your first home and whatnot. So you definitely want to use those. Make sure you refer to those videos and take it from there. The next thing you want to do is to get pre-qualified. This one is very important before you go falling in love out there with a house. Get pre-qualified. What does that mean? Sit down with the bank and actually ask them how much will you people give me if you're getting a mortgage. If you're paying cash, this does not apply to you. And yes, there are people that pay cash for houses in Canada. Don't let the the noise out there fool you. Okay. Um, Again, reference the mortgage video. I went into a deep dive on what you need for qualification and whatnot. The number one question they're going to ask you is how much is your down payment? Okay, so because that's a major factor when it comes to how much they're actually going to borrow you. You have to have some skin in the game, okay, between 5 to 20%. Um, you are remember I say this all the time. Fixing finance, you are qualified on your pre-tax income. And we all know in this beautiful land of Canada, you always pay taxes. So don't get carried away. Just because they pre-qualify you for 700,000, 800,000, 1.4 million does not mean you can afford a house of 1.4 million or 700,000. Okay. That's why the very first thing we talked about is knowing your budget and playing with scenarios. If I buy a $500,000 house, how's that going to affect my budget? At X amount of interest rate, you will see what the monthly payment is. You understand? You can go online to your city's website and look at what property insurance is going to be. Okay, plug those numbers into your budget before you even buy the house, so you know exactly how that weight is going to affect you once you add it onto your. You know, we talked about the generator a few weeks ago, right? If you have a generator, when you plug in a iron, doesn't really move the generator. When you plug in fridge and freezer, the generator is going to shake. You understand? So you want to make sure your generator can accept, it has the capacity. So your finances has the capacity to carry on the load of this mortgage and your housing cost in general. Okay. So you're qualified on your pre-tax income. So just because they qualify you for X does not mean you can buy X. You need to always go back and check, okay, what's the payment going to be and how is it going to affect your monthly expenses. So because this is how a lot of people they get carried away and you understand they end up buying a house because the bank pre-qualified them for 700,000. When they get home, they realize they are now spending 50 to 70% of their take-home pay on housing. There's nothing left after that. That's by the time you factor in groceries and all that, it's a lot of pressure. And if you're in that boat, today where you're spending 50 to 70% or more of your income or your take-home pay on your housing, you know, I pray that by God's grace, God will show you a way out, and help you find relief some way, somehow. Because I can only imagine what sort of pressure that is. I see you, I feel you, and God, by God's grace, will make a way where there seems to be no way. In Jesus' name, amen. Okay. You don't want to be house poor, like I mentioned. So if you are there, if you've not entered yet and you are about to enter, don't be house poor. Okay, house poor basically means you're spending so much of your take home pay on your housing, so there's really nothing left. We talked about it earlier. There's a whole lot of life left outside of the house. Um, the bank for your pre-qualification, the bank is going to look at your down payment. They're going to look at uh, uh, you as a person, the value of the home, and your financial story, past, present, and future. Your financial story, past, they're going to look at your credit reports. Do you have missed payments? Do you have NSF charges? Are you the kind of person that you don't pay your obligations? Do you have collections and bankruptcies and all that on your credit? So that's your past story they're looking at. They're going to look at your present story, your current job, how long you've been at the job, your current debt obligations. Okay, so you have paid some stuff off in the past. How much do you still owe today? You have a car payment, you have student loan, you have this HELOC payment, blah 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 blah. You're gonna look at your current debt obligation. The mortgage video that I mentioned, make sure you check it out. We talked about your total debt service ratio. They're gonna look at that to calculate, okay, how much of your paycheck or how much of your pay is going towards servicing debt. You understand that they're gonna factor that in. There's going to be something called the stress test. That's your current story they're building. They're going to look at your credit score. Credit score is not that intense when it comes to affecting your application. If it's less than 650, then chances are your interest rate is going to be higher. If it's more than 650, you are likely going to get marketable rates. They're also going to look at your financial story for the future. So past, present, future. Future includes job security. For example, if you're in a field that the economy is showing, it's not necessarily, again, there's a limit to how much they can make their assumptions. Okay? You look at things like your job security. If you've been at your job for 1 month versus if you've been at your job for say 2, 3, 5 years, okay. Your future obligations, you understand. So even if you're not paying for stuff now, have you signed up for something where in the next 18 months, 20 months, you're gonna have to start paying for it? The home value, you understand, and where they think the home value is gonna go. Rent, if you have, for example, say you're gonna rent out the basement, or you're gonna rent out the duplex on the other side, other income coming into your house that was going to help with payments. So not necessarily from your jobs, from your other businesses and side quests. Okay. Um, interest rates and where they think interest rates are going to go. So if we're in an environment where interest rates might go up, they might say, "Oh, okay, can this person handle it if interest rates go up?" You understand? The state of the economy in general. If the economy is quote unquote in a recession and they're not lending money as freely, that also affects. Okay, so they look at your financial story, past, present, and future. Okay, the next thing you want to do when you're thinking of buying a house is to choose a real estate agent. Now, some choose to forgo this. I don't think it's necessarily wise. Um, what you want to do when you choose an agent is, land that you understand your budget and you understand markets. You understand? Now is the time to hire a distinguished real estate agent. I particularly put the word distinguished there. You understand? Don't use sentiments to choose your real estate agent. Okay, I will leave that a word is enough for the wise. It's your largest purchase that you're going to be making. Okay, so don't use sentiment to choose who is going to help you buy it. Just don't. It's just not wise. Okay, you want someone that has, that will actually teach you if you don't understand. So if you ask questions, they don't like look down on you or talk down at you. They actually explain and help you understand what your options are, what you need to do, and they're actually there to help you, not just after the commission they're going to make. Okay. Um, you want to make sure you get some reviews from prior customers if you've had any. Of course, you definitely want to have someone that's had them. Um, check their track record and you can ask those questions, okay? You want someone that's worth their salt for sure. You don't want to just use sentiment to choose who can help you buy your house. Usually the seller pays the agent. Double check, for example, if you make an offer, sometimes some agents are out there that won't actually present the offer. Again, because some of them are so concerned with their commission check. And there's nothing wrong in looking after yourself for your commission check. It's just they have to serve you. Like it's a service, you understand? So make sure they are serving you in general. So if you make an offer, no matter how ridiculous or whatnot the offer is, make sure they actually presented it. Okay. So I'll give an example. We wanted to purchase our first property in this city. One of the first offers we made was absolutely ridiculous. Keep in mind, the market was much different back then. It was, I think, it was like 75% of the purchase of the price that was put out there. And I said, make like I want to actually make that because you never know who's motivated and who's not. You don't know who's out there that can actually afford to take a hit like that because they bought it for chicken change and they can afford to actually take that hit. Okay, so make sure they present your offer. Sometimes they don't even present it because they think the house is worth X and they want to make X. So make sure they present your offer. Discuss commissions. Don't shy away from it. This is, from the seller perspective, and depending on the situation where you have one agent acting for both parties, discuss commissions. Don't shy away from those discussions. Okay, do research into what's accepted and what's normal in your city, and see where you can find a nice happy middle. Okay, everything is negotiable. Remember, everything is negotiable. Okay, so you want to make sure this person, if they're gonna earn the dollar that you're going to pay them, basically. Okay. When you're looking at their contract, because you have to sign a contract with the real estate agent, when you read that contract, you definitely want to look at, exclusivity. So some agents will require that you only work with them and nobody else. Is that something you want for yourself? How long is the relationship going to be? Some are going to put it in there for like X amount of years, amount of time, or X amount of period, whatever. Like, make sure you check it out and make sure it works for you. There's just wrong in the agent requesting for A, just make sure A works for you. Okay. And specialty matters. So, for example, if you want to buy an acreage, you're not going to use an agent that specializes in condos. Okay. Find an agent that actually specializes in acreages. Okay. And go from there. And of course, last but not least, personality fit. Like, do you actually like the person that you're working with? If you don't, move on from the person, find another agent. Okay. Like, do you vibe with the person? Because this person is helping you buy your largest asset. Okay. So there's no sentiments. Do what's best for you and your family. Okay. The next thing you want to do is to make an offer. Okay, so it's very easy to fall into the trap of plenty viewings. If you're like me, you can fall into analysis paralysis where you are doing over analyzing everything. You don't actually make an offer even when there's a good deal on the table. Okay, so make sure you make an offer when you find something that checks most of your boxes. Chances of you finding something that checks every single box, it's kind of slim. But when you find something that checks most of your boxes and makes sense, don't get carried away with analysis. Make sure you make an offer. Okay, this is where conditions are included. So, for example, most common conditions include things like subject to financing. So, you're signing a purchase agreement with this person, provided you can get the financing that's needed to close on the house. Um, Inspection. So, for example, you can put a condition in there like, okay, once we do the inspection, depending on what we find, if we don't like what we find, we can walk away from the deal. Um, Time to sell your current property. So say you're moving to a bigger house or a different house or a different city, you might say, okay, we're gonna need time, 30 days, 60 days, however many days to sell our current property and then be able to pay you for your own. And then other conditions as needed. Make sure you discuss with your agent your current situation, and the agent will guide you into what to put into the offer. So now, because of the crazy, just not crazy, because of the real estate market we are in, you have a lot of deals that are going through where there's no condition that's even included. Okay, you just take off all conditions and whatnot. Nothing wrong with that. Just be mindful, okay, because you're on your own basically. Say for example, you take off inspection condition, blah blah blah, and you end up going into the house and there's something wrong. You cannot go after anybody for that reason. So make sure you apply wisdom. You understand? If it's a new build and whatnot, even with new builds, you definitely want to have your inspections done. Okay. So if anything, I would say subject to financing and inspection, those two I think are necessary. Again, you're paying a lot of money for this thing. You don't want to be in a rush. Okay. Um, Once your offer is accepted, make sure like the same day or within 24 hours, make a deposit of anywhere from 5,000 to 5% of the purchase price to show that you're a serious person and that you're a serious player. Okay. So let's say you make an offer this morning, they accept it this morning. Before the end of the day, make a deposit. Some sellers will actually tell you the deposit they're looking for. Some of them might say they want $10,000 upon accepting your offer, just so you know you're serious. They know you're serious. So be ready to make that transaction um when that offer is accepted. Okay. Um as usual, the funds will be held in trust. Once you make that payment, don't be worried about your money. For example, if the financing falls through, or you find something that's ridiculous in the inspection, don't worry about your money going missing because the money is held in trust. Okay, so the seller can't actually start using the money until everything is signed and dotted and delivered. Okay. Um, what else in terms of making an offer? Remember, you can use I know this is kind of funny. You can actually use sentiments to get your seller to accept your offer. Okay. You can write good stories that touch when you're making your offer. It's not uncommon for people, for example, you fall in love with the house, or you fall in love with the environment, or you have every reason. For example, your sister lives down the street and you want to be close to where your sister is living. There are people that do that, especially in this my city. I see it all the time. Mom lives here, sister lives there, cousin lives there, and literally the entire clan is on the same street. So don't be afraid to use sentiment to get your seller to sell to you, especially when you're in a bidding situation. In today's day and age, it's dollar bills that speak for you. So but don't be afraid to use sentiment to get your offer accepted. Um, the next thing is to get an inspection and appraisal done. So once your offer has been accepted and your everything is good to go. Make sure you get that inspection done. I know a lot of people remove this as a condition. I personally, again, each person, each situation is unique, so do what's best for you. Okay. An appraisal is required if you are getting an uninsured mortgage. So if you're putting 20% or more down, an appraisal is usually required for the mortgage. So make sure you check out that mortgage video again. I went into detail in all this, so I'm not going to do that in this video. When it comes to bidding wars, it's like I mentioned, it's easy to waive all conditions, in order to buy the house and all that. Just remember, you are the one responsible, and you're basically on your own if anything happens. Um, Once you've taken possession. Okay. Um, Next thing you want to do when everything is all said and done is to pick a mortgage. Okay, fixed versus variable, open versus closed. What sort of mortgage term are you working with? Um, you understand? Remember to negotiate on the rate. Always, I say here all the time, remember to negotiate. I'm Nigerian by birth, and one thing we do a lot in Nigeria, we negotiate everything. But for some reason, when people move to Canada, that I don't understand. People just forget you can negotiate every single thing. So make sure you negotiate on your mortgage. Okay, don't just take the first offer. Again, for example, our mortgage is coming up for renewal, and our bank sent me an offer. I looked at it, I laughed, I declined it so quick because I'm like, you're not serious. You think I'm going to accept this offer? Of course, I'm going to shop around. Of course, I'm going to compare it. Of course, I'm going to put you on your toes. You understand? To make sure you keep me as a customer because I'm a good customer. So I know my worth as a customer. You understand? So same thing. Safety very like make sure you shop around, okay? Use a mortgage broker that is fired. You know, there's a lady, I don't know her personally, but I follow her page. Her name is Dami. No, wait. I will link it in this video maybe later. She is, I see her post on mortgages all the time. She's just extra hot sauce. Actually, I'm gonna find it. Just so I can, this one is just a so if you're in the market, mortgages by Dami, I okay, I'll find it later just because of time. But yes, definitely you want to make sure you pick a mortgage broker that is fire. Um, do your price matching. Don't just take the first thing that they give you. Okay. Um, and go from there. I think I found it. Bear with me. Just because I see all the stuff she posts all the time. I'm always like, huh? Yes, mortgages by Dami. I was right. Okay, so make sure you check out her page on Instagram. Um, So the next thing you want to do once you've picked your mortgage and all that is to close. You actually need to close on the deal. You have made a promise that you are buying this house for X amount, so you want to keep your word. Okay? It's usually around 90 days that you put for closing. And again, this is just to give time, to make sure everybody gets their ducks in a row and whatnot. Give time for all the lawyers to communicate, for all the conditions to be removed, all the fees to be paid, the bank to send the funds, blah, blah, blah. One rule of thumb here, remember to close on a weekday, like earlier in the week. So like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Don't pick a Friday because if anything goes wrong and you can't close on that day, you just be stressed unnecessary. Again, speaking from, don't do it. Pick earlier in the week. So that way, if let's say you decide to close on a Tuesday, if things happen and you have to move it or what, there's still enough people left to be able to cover and do whatever you need to do. Okay. And uh next one is always be willing to walk away. This I kind of said it throughout as I was talking. Be willing to walk away. In most negotiations, the person that's willing to walk away usually gets a better deal. So when you walk into a house, before you fall in love with it, make sure the numbers make sense and make sure everything aligns. So don't just fall in love with it and run and get carried away with it. Be willing to walk away from any deal whatsoever. Doesn't matter how sweet it is, there will always be a sweet deal out there. Okay, because a lot of times when it comes to housing and whatnot, there's this all or nothing mindset that people have. No, don't do that. Be willing to walk away. There's always going to be a house that you can buy. Okay, yes, I said it. Even in this current climate, there's always going to be a house you can buy. Okay, last but not least, you definitely want to plan for maintenance costs. So this is post-script, of course, post-purchase. You want to do an in-depth inspection every 3 to 5 years. If you buy an older home, so if it's not a brand new, like new build, you want to start saving for large items that would need replacement. So when you do your inspection, a lot of times they'll tell you, okay, the roof was done here, it's going to have to be replaced in 8 years. It's going to have to be replaced in 6 years. So you know that okay, from day one, you have to start saving from that for that roof. Okay, like HVAC, carpets. You understand? Okay, this carpet is now 20 years old. You're gonna have to replace it right away, of course. 'Cause most the useful lives, a lot of all the things in the house have limited useful lives. So you have to replace them, you understand, depending on how large it is. You definitely want to start saving for that sooner than later. Okay. And last but not least, make a list of all the day-to-day stuff that need replacing. A lot of time that's why when we say you don't want too much house, you don't want to have too much of a take home pay going towards your house. You will not have enough to be able to fix things that break. You understand? So make a list of day-to-day stuff, things like light bulbs, plumbing, windows, HVAC, interior, exterior touch-ups. You dig the wall there. A shingle gets misplaced outside. Your fence is bending. Things like that. You definitely want to make sure you have enough funds to be able to fix all those things as they come up. If not, what's going to happen is you're going to look up. You've been in the house for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, and the house is going to look much older than it needs to. And when you now decide to sell, you're not going to be able to get top dollar. Okay, so it's better to be fixing things small by small, touch up here, touch up there, than to make it a big fix. Okay, but anyways, we won't go into that in too much detail. So yeah, we're going to wrap it up here. Okay, so yeah, for each property, repeat as necessary. Okay, so we talked about knowing your budget and your household expenses, getting to know your local real estate market, um, gathering your down payments, getting pre-qualified, choosing a real estate agent, then you make an offer, then you get an inspection and appraisal done, you pick a mortgage, you close, always be willing to walk away. I'm going to leave this up while we wrap up. Be willing to walk away from any deal. Plan for maintenance costs, and of course, your next property as needed. I think we're going to wrap it up here. 37. Nice. Okay. Thank you all for joining us today. It's been a while. I miss you all. Thank you all for joining. And Soji again on Instagram. Thank you so much for that comment. Soji said that the money he's doing, the more I look, the less I see. That is so hilarious. Thank you all for joining today. We will see you next week. Same time, Saturday, 12 p.m. Eastern. Thank you for joining. Have a wonderful weekend. Bye.